I think that's one of the biggest issues in IT, to be honest. That's repairability, circularity.
Hello and welcome to the CSO Impact Podcast, where we talk to leaders in sustainability and experts in the ecosystem. We're discussing how we can work in a way that makes a positive impact on the planet. I'm your host, Harald Neithardt, and in this episode, we talk to Arthur Schneider, Head of Sustainability Management at the Bechtle Group. Arthur, thanks you very much for being here today with us. I'd like to start about talking about your role as a Head of Sustainability Management at the Bechtle Group. Can you tell us a little bit about the projects you're working on right now?
Thanks for the intro, and hello, Harald. Good to talk to you again after seeing us face to face a couple of months ago in snowy Switzerland. And thanks for having me and inviting me on such an impactful format, right? Really good, and looking forward to the talk. Currently working as the Head of Sustainability Management at Bechtle Group, which is really an interesting role because we've just had an interesting discussion and panel in Berlin at the Green Tech Festival, because in our industry, which is IT and digitization, we always speak about twin transformation, which is the sustainable and digital transformation of the industry. And that's why me in my role within the company, I'm directly reporting to the executive board, and we are working on, for example, implementing the strategy into the organization. We also consult our executive board on legislation and upcoming trends, of course. We have a lot of dialogue, which is good because we need top management attention here. And we also do a lot of trainings and webinars with our employees. For example, yesterday we had a training with 15 people from Germany and Switzerland on sales education, basically. So education is really also part of the work from myself and the team. And we basically operate from central into the 14 countries where the Bechtle Group is presented in Europe. And I really need to say it is an interesting task more than ever.
14 countries. Wow. So that spans across Europe. And then are you also in other continents?
So we are basically set in Europe currently. So from Portugal to Kiel, basically in the northern part of Germany. So we have partners globally, of course, but the Bechtle Group as such, it's in the core of the European Union plus UK and Switzerland. Yeah.
And speaking of Switzerland, and you mentioned we saw you in Davos, and congratulations again, out of the top 100 CSOs that we awarded with or recognized as a CSO leader position. You were voted as you got an award as a peer award, which was interesting because everybody in the room during the gala dinner could vote for different candidates, and you made the win. So congratulations again on this.
Thanks. It was really a surprise, to be honest, that there was a peer award actually, and that it was actually live voting. Maybe the networking went well before the gala dinner. I don't know.
All right. So keep your secrets for next time so that you still have chances. As we know, I was actually expecting that we had a lady winning because we had, of the top 20, 75% of the CSOs were women, which is actually, I think, a good trend in the CSO role. But you made the cut, and that's also great. So congrats again. So we just talking about the last couple of months, but when did you start the role? Maybe a couple of years back. What was your career within Bechtle, or how did you start in sustainability?
Yeah, that's really a good one, because I guess there are many starting points of people being active in sustainability. So myself, I started at Bechtle like roughly 8 years ago. I worked in a central team which supported, in my case, especially the Benelux, so Belgium, the Netherlands, also Ireland and UK later on. But it was really Benelux from the beginning. And to be honest, I worked with sustainability from day one because I needed to do the EcoVadis assessment for our Belgian entity, because the government asked us to do so. And back then there was not really the knowledge base existing in IT in Europe. So it was kind of a new topic. It was not really new because green IT was existing for a couple of years, but still it was new because it was getting real. And so for me, it was basically learning sustainability and social environmental aspects within IT projects from government, from cities, from hospitals, and how they see sustainable procurement. And since the 3 years, July 2021, I moved internally because the board decided to go for a central team. So I applied, and since 3 years, we did a lot with the team and with our community across the Bechtle Group. So it was basically a rather learning on the job, hands-on experience, and then I got into sustainability from this perspective. Yeah.
Interesting. What are you by training?
Basically, I did something around European studies. So there was a mix of legal and economics, but also like European politics and culture. So basically, I can make use of that to understand. Today, there was the formal go on the CSDDD, the European Supply Chain Act, in Brussels, and I was in Brussels for half a year during my master's, so I know legislation processes and how lobby work being done in Brussels quite well. And I can make use of that. So basically from legal politics perspective, I'm looking at processes in European legislation. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Europe and more policy coming, probably Europe is at the forefront of how policymakers take sustainability and the Green Deal at the forefront of this. And we're just at the beginning. Now, how do you see the role of the CSO evolve over the next few years?
So the point you just mentioned, that there is a huge development going on, especially around CSRD, the European Supply Chain Act, EU taxonomy, and so on. And that's only being a couple of those being really the drivers currently. I think financial and non-financial is getting on the same level, because now the first reports get audited the year 2024, and then many companies will follow. And now we realize that it's really getting mature. So the role of the CSO will get even more relevant for organizations and companies in the next 5 years, because it's really becoming part of core business. I mean, in Davos, we talked about the topic around transformation officers. That's true, because it's an emotion and it's a cultural topic around change processes, but really financial and non-financial getting on the same level. Non-financial is really getting more mature and important, and that's why CSO is really moving into the higher management and responsibility levels within organizations. So let's say the long-term perspective is really being at the table with the CFOs and CEOs and the other, let's say, drivers in companies. Yeah.
Yeah, we see some CSOs really already part of the board level and C-suites. So that's your next step, I think, I hope. Now, within your time at the company, at Bechtle, what would you say was maybe a biggest achievement or a project which was, outstanding, remarkable in a way?
So let's say we managed to basically build the structure. So we formed a central team, which was really good. We've built some competencies. We are like the central knowledge hub for employees and basically every team that is facing any ESG questions and topics. But basically, as we are quite a decentralized company, so there is the Bechtle AG and the group, of course, somehow setting the guidelines, but still there are so many independent legal entities across Europe, plus 100 plus legal entities being part of the group. And we managed to build a proper community across those legal entities. We really managed to get people on board being active, and that's why we could calculate our corporate carbon footprint. And on the strategy meeting, which our company is organizing once a year, where we really talk on strategic topics, we also see awards being handed out for, let's say, the top financial company in Europe. And there is also like a special award. And last year, sustainability community won the Bechtle award for basically being the brand representative, because we managed to really get this topic into discussions on the agenda. And that's, I think, really a good milestone, because we see that this is really like visibility is there, and this was really good recognition, because the community is the foundation of our movement.
That's great. It's a great achievement for sure. Now, one part of the coin are the achievements, and the other part is maybe challenges. What was on the way something which was maybe very tough, or something to overcome? So what are some of the challenges that you face in your career?
Yeah. I think it is basically a set of challenges. Let's say currently, to be honest, the dynamic of legislation and the translation into organizations and processes is definitely always a challenge. I mean, this year is really like the year of CSRD, but it's like really, I mean, a positive challenge. But to be honest, in the very beginning, it was also quite tough, not because there was negative opinions about that. It was simply the understanding, and then we are again with education. So the challenge was rather to educate finance, to educate various departments on what sustainability and ESG really means. So let's say it was really convincing and really repeating yourself, to be honest, hundreds of times, which is you need to be reluctant on some topics. Again, in a positive way, because you still need to keep motivation up. So I think that's why the challenge was really to build the level of understanding on what sustainability really can be if you play it right. And now it's rather translating legislation on a proper way into your organization to make it usable. That's maybe now the current one.
Yeah. And you mentioned before, maybe just quickly coming to that you have sort of this dual transformation. I had hoped that by now, 30 years later, we have done the digital transformation, but a lot of people still are in it. And now we're going into, let's say, a transformation which is more on a sustainability or even towards regeneration. I don't want to use the same word. You have digital transformation, and sustainability cannot also be, it's another transformation, another 30 years. No, we have less than that. So it has to be just more. For me, I always say it's metamorphosis. We have to go into something totally different, a totally different animal. Maybe just as a side note, we know now you're an IT expert, so there's green IT, sustainable IT. Our friends at sustainableIT.org, which are doing things to collect data and a framework how IT can also become more greener. But also IT is instrumental in let's say collecting data so that people in the business units can actually do something with the data and do it better. How do you see, as a part of an IT company, you are basically at the forefront of these different topics all mixing up? So, what is maybe your take on this? On your dual transformation?
Yeah, you're definitely right.
You're inside the tornado, basically.
Yeah, true. I hope you're right. It's not 30 years for the sustainable transformation. So maybe now we can really boost certain aspects. No, to be honest, we talk to a lot of customers. We as a team also talk to a lot of customers, which is good because we have the market perspective as well. We're not only working internal here, so it's kind of hybrid. And it doesn't matter which vertical, if it's public, if it's a production company, chemical, healthcare, doesn't matter. In the end, someone need a system, like you mentioned. Either you're running logistics, buildings, production facilities somewhere globally. They need systems. They need Internet of Things or sensoric to track energy consumption, because else you're not able to manage it. So in the end, you're right that you can enable transparency and ecological transformation. But on the other hand, we need to be realistic. So there is a CO2 footprint of every notebook we sell and procure, and circularity is only starting in B2B, to be honest. At least in Germany. In some countries, we are a bit further. In Netherlands, France, we have legislation on that. So we really need to see it on a measurable way. And therefore, we need systems and software. That's true. So I think it's definitely an opportunity to make use of digitization in the right way to transform sustainability on the long term.
That also puts you in a way in a different dual position, because if you are basically becoming a supplier, you're part of scope 3 of so many of your customers. So they probably ask you, okay, give us the data, how you run the systems, what is part of the products you supply. So you not only have to report on your own things, but you have to also give data to your clients.
That's definitely something we get asked quite a lot. I think that questions on supply chain transparency was really leading. And to be honest, now climate questions overtake again a bit. That's maybe my personal feeling. But you're right, it's definitely because we are there, scope 3 emissions, their upstream value chain. So we get a lot of questions on can you run reports, maybe even on a monthly basis. And then again, we need to transform our systems. And we now included CO2 values on hardware in our Bechtle shop, for example. It was really a long way with our development team, but I think we think it's really a value add for our customers, because then in the end they can really decide which IT they procure, not only on tech specs but also on energy efficiency and CO2 emissions. And that's great because it's giving them transparency. And we are investing quite a lot of resources into making those topics available to all kinds of customers, not only the bigger ones, but really every set of customers.
Great. All right. So I had a good idea there. Now, you come from, let's say, a non-traditional background, let's say, because there's not a lot of sustainability you could study when you started. Now, people come to the role of the CSO from all sorts of backgrounds. What would you say to someone who's maybe just starting as a CSO or wants to go into this role? What is maybe the most important thing that people have to keep in mind, maybe from their training or from their how they would succeed in this role?
Yeah, I think it's always a no-brainer, because you always get the message like you need to build your network within the company or within the organization. Maybe you also work in a ministry. But I think that's honestly the most important one. Understand how your organization works, who's doing what, why is risk management asking several questions, and what is their purpose and goal. And then if you understand finance, if you understand logistics processes, and maybe you understand challenges from procurement, you can position your topics. So I think it's an easy one, but it really works. That's at least my experience. It's also what I tell people joining our team, like really understand the organization in the first phase, and then you can position your topics, because else you will really have a hard time making your project successful. And I think maybe a second one which really works, make yourself visible, especially if you're in a bigger organization, which is maybe even spread across some countries, and make yourself visible, like make use of LinkedIn and social media, and really show people that your role and your person is a value add, and then they will invite you automatically. That's maybe something which I realized in the beginning after some achievements. Make them visible, and then they will invite you and they will listen to you.
Great. I mean, that again also syncs up so much with our, mission to shine a light on this role, so that people get a little bit more visibility and a bigger seat on the table. Now, in your role where you are right now, what are some of the things that keep you awake at night? What are you thinking of in the next couple of years, months? What's ahead of you where you have to think about it?
Yeah, so definitely positive and maybe challenging topics. So the good thing is that sustainability is getting more mature, right? It's getting the right visibility, which also means the responsibility grows. I mean, we talk about corporate responsibility, but as soon as you realize it's a central team, and to be honest, we are not a huge team, but still that's okay, because with the community in addition, it totally works. But still, when the responsibility hits you, you realize how important the topic really is, and that it's becoming more important for investors and for getting the right loan from banks and so on. And then in the end, it's really stuff that definitely is not finishing at 5 p.m. or something. Maybe sometimes even bothers you during the weekend. And on the other hand, it's definitely that really, let's say, supply chain topics are sometimes a bit complex and not easy to grab, and we need more collaboration in the market. That's maybe something which is rather the outlook, like how can we get deeper into mining and stuff like that, which is in IT unfortunately not the most positive topic, but it's part of the job, right? So that's why it's part of your project you need to work on.
Yeah, so it's complex. It's almost geopolitics, if you will. If IT, lithium mining, to solve the EV vehicles, we need this. And on the other hand, well, it's better or worse. Let's say it's better and less worse than the normal way with oil. Speaking of, let's say, illumination. I don't know how I jumped from oil to, but an oil lamp, so to say. So you have a magic lamp, a magic wand, so to say, which allows you to solve maybe one problem related to sustainability overnight. It could be, in politics, it could be geopolitics, it could be within your organization, arm's length. What is something which you would say, this is something you would like to pick to solve overnight?
So one thing which is, it's sometimes really frustrating, at least we realize that a lot of market stakeholders talk about circularity and repairability, but to be honest, it's not really happening in IT. It's maybe something which got somehow trendy in B2B with some companies like Refurbed and so on. Like a refurbed iPhone is as good as new. But we do not see that in B2B. Like in brackets, some of the markets like the Netherlands and France, they got there because of government goals and legislation. But it would be great to talk about lifetime extension and changing batteries because devices are not glued, but really having circular devices and really making use and proper use of resources. Because I think that's one of the biggest issues in IT, to be honest. That's repairability, circularity. That would be great. So
you even, in your background as let's say with legislation, you would even, let's say we saw a good example maybe with the USB-C plug, so that finally all the iPhone chargers or other chargers are kind of synchronized. And so would you pledge for a little bit stronger policy making, because a lot of people it's allowed, so I can do whatever I want. Do you think in some aspects we have to be a little bit more proactive with policy making?
I think so. I think that let's say government waited too long for right to repair, which is it is a good initiative, I think, but I think it took a bit too long to be honest, and then still the transition and implementation is still up. So let's see. While seeing it on a daily basis, it's not there yet. So I think the European Union and especially policy making could do more, because honestly, the globe is looking at us in terms of sustainability. That's what we get reflected from partners in Asia and the US. They really see the European continent being the front runner in legislation and policy making. And I think we could be brave to really put those standards up and really drive those topics more frequently. So yeah, maybe we should be brave on those topics. Yeah.
We have a chance to do the election soon. Now, to do one of the put the right policymakers in place. I think there's a general notion for me as well that policy is always looking towards the back, or to the past history. Oh, let's look at this pattern. We can do it better. And then they more or less cement the status quo. But they're less likely in being into foresight because in a way, okay, speaking of IT, we are talking about AI right now. AI is creating huge, data pull on energy and pull on new water consumptions to cool. And there's actually no legislation and saying, oh, every new product should be, coming with a product pass. Well, we have that this is coming, but let's say there's so much freedom, and probably in 5 years we say, oh, maybe we should have done a little bit, be more careful in the growth of AI. Let's stop it now, and then the genie is out of the box. How do you see? Do you have it's a very personal, obviously, a statement about AI in this context? Can AI be a solution for also helping us on the way to sustainability, or is it actually creating much more challenges at the same time?
Yeah, that's really a good one, which was one of the leading questions, like mentioned in the beginning when we were in Berlin. There was also an event from Handelsblatt where our executive board member, Antje Leminski, she's also taking care of sustainability. She was part of the panel, and they really discussed the topics you just mentioned, that it's not, there is not only a positive effect, there is definitely a negative cause as well. And that's why, let's say, the use cases are important, because in some cases AI can really drive sustainable transformation, but it really starts with the code and data centers we host those topics on, and there is really huge difference. So we should somehow define a frame. European Union is looking at this, which is a kind of maybe the AI code of conduct, something like that. Like Volker Wissing was on stage, one of the German politicians, and he also really put a point on that one, that the European Union should do more on setting the frame, and within this frame we can make use of it, but it needs to be defined. So it should be looked at in a critical way. So it's not only positive.
I agree. It's very ambivalent, this role, and fascinating to see, obviously, the growth, and every day there's new ideas. But I think we have to be careful in the regards for sustainability. What is maybe a person that inspires you, or so if you had somebody, what did you learn maybe from a certain mentor or somebody, in your either closer or wider audience, something that inspires you from a personal background?
In the role of sustainability, of course, I would say it's not only the one person, but to be honest, what I realized when I entered sustainability, that when you meet different other sustainability managers or head of sustainability or CSOs, even from competitors, the sustainability bubble is really open, and we discuss, we share best practices. There is a certain sharing concept of knowledge, like sharing is caring, and sharing with pride is really, because we hear it from a lot of communities, but I think in sustainability, it's really happening. So peer learning and really facing the same initiatives, that's really happening. And that's why I would even call out the sustainability bubble being somehow really a driver and really motivating and inspiring, because those are powerful people, and they still really work and collaborate. And I think there are a lot of events and connections that are built up, maybe even globally, between professors from universities and company representatives, and they really actually have the same goal, and they really work on it in a certain way. So I think the sustainability bubble is really something that inspires people and me personally, because I didn't know that it was that open when I started, to be honest.
Oh, that's great to hear. Similar, obviously, something that drives us in helping to create some of these gatherings or creative collisions, if you will. if you had, let's say, recommendation, what would you say to young people if they want to go into sustainability? Maybe the first idea is I go to an NGO, I maybe join Greenpeace, which is all great, but not everybody can join there. How would you inspire people, or what would you say to young people that could be interesting for them to actually consider a job in a corporate? But because at the outset, it might not be as inspiring, but as you just said, it's actually an open bubble with other communities as well. So what's something you would give an advice to a young person who is maybe seeking an idea into going into these roles?
I think so you can really consider entering corporates because you will really find and seek sustainability jobs in companies like Bechtle. It's not only the NGOs anymore. You can really also do something from a corporate, and you really have a set of job roles from circularity to procurement, and they all adapt to sustainability behaviors. So there are many job roles being built. So just do a proper research on your personal interest, and you will definitely find something.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arthur, for being here with us in the CSO Impact Podcast today. If you want to hear and learn more about stories like this, how CSOs get into their role, or how they inspire to all of the organizations to go into a more sustainable way, please also read our book and follow us for more in this podcast series. Thanks again, Arthur, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Harald, and thanks for everyone listening. And sharing is caring. That's maybe a good last word.
Thank you so much, Arthur.
Thank you.